हरि ओम ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः. Pranamam to all blessed souls. In the last session we have seen how Sri Shankara Bhagavatpada had ascribed the sense to words like Vidya and Avidya in stanza 9, mantra 9 of Isavasyopanishad. According to Sri Shankara Bhagavatpada, Avidya means not merely ignorance, but action born of ignorance, ill-motivated, selfish actions performed with an eye on the result. That is avidya, and which is also not actually, which cannot be actually taken together with knowledge. At the same time, in the stanza, there is a word vidya, which Sri Shankara Bhagavatpada doesn't interpret it as mere knowledge, spiritual knowledge, or mere knowledge which will take us to an area of enlightenment. According to Sri Shankara Bhagavatpada, there vidya means devata vishayaga jnana. And we have also seen that how action alone without knowledge actually takes a person to darkness. Same time, a person knows everything about the devatas who are being propitiated through the actions. He knows everything about the rituals, but doesn't bother to transfer that into action. So on the one hand, there is action born out of ignorance. It could well be wedded with the knowledge, but the people who have the knowledge do not bother to yoke it with the action. With the result, these two remain as separate entities, and thus real benefit from action or real benefit from knowledge is denied to either. Normally, there are several acharyas who do not speak of action in connection with avidya. They interpret avidya as ignorance. They also interpret vidya as knowledge. Avidya, as everyone knows, ignorance will lead a person to darkness, no doubt. But then the controversy arises, the perplexity arises when vidya is said to mean merely knowledge. According to those acharyas, vidya sometimes can puff up the ego of a person. A person who is under the shadow of avidya may be doing bad things. He may be a nuisance to the society, but then he may be a person without ego. But a person who cracks under the weight of knowledge, at the same time the person who is suffering, he is not enjoying or he is not benefited by the vidya, but then he is actually suffering out of vidya because it's a weight that crushes him. Such a person also goes to darkness because he is under a great ego. There are acharyas who have interpreted it that way. People who revel in knowledge, they have this knowledge at the intellectual level. It has never percolated into real experience, and so what is lodged in the intellect, that remains as a dead weight. There are acharyas who have interpreted it that way. But then Sri Aurobindo Ghosh has a totally different interpretation for these two words. It will be very interesting to see that. First, let us recall the mantra once again. Mantra 9 of Isavasyopanishad. Antham tama pravishanti ye avidyam upasade tado bhuya ivate tamo ya u vidyayam rata. Sri Aurobindo Ghosh says that people who are after ignorance enter blinding darkness, and those people who are devoted to knowledge alone, it is as though they enter greater darkness. He gives them what is avidya, what is vidya. He gives a normal interpretation. But then, to understand the deep layers of meaning therein, we have also to familiarize ourselves a little bit with Sri Aurobindo Ghosh's philosophy. Sri Aurobindo is a person who enunciated before us the integral yoga. The concept of the integral yoga has been described by him at length. The world around us is not a mere illusion. It's also reality. Brahman, the one, that is also a reality. From the mere mundane existence, step by step, we go and then identify ourselves with Brahman. The integral yoga, the synthetic aspect has been stressed there. In relation to this verse, Sri Aurobindo Ghosh says, unity is the fundamental principle, no doubt about that. Unity is the basic fundamental principle. And it is the unity that gives reality to multiplicity. If the unity had not been there, there's no question of the real feel of the multiplicity. Thus the multiplicity acquires its reality, its truth from unity. Unity is the fundamental aspect. The consciousness of unity is vidya. Then what is avidya? Avidya is the consciousness of multiplicity. What is multiplicity? Multiplicity is nothing but the play of the one. It is nothing but the varied expression of the one. The one operates from many centers of consciousness, many forms of energy, and this is multiplicity. Multiplicity is also very significant. According to Sri Aurobindo Ghosh, without multiplicity, unity would be nothing but a void of non-existence, so to say. The unity would be under a limiting, sterile limitation, a state of sterile limitation to a situation of indiscriminate self-absorption or blank repose. All these words are from Sri Aurobindo Ghosh. That would be unity without multiplicity. Look at the way the multiplicity also has been celebrated here. But having said that, one has to remember one thing. the consciousness of multiplicity is not without the possibility of certain errors and delusion. How does a situation of error develop in multiple consciousness? When we speak in relation to multiple consciousness, the many, that is the many centers of consciousness, if they get separated from the fundamental fact of unity, from the knowledge of unity, if they get separated, then a situation of error develops. Then delusion arises. The centers of multiplicity, though they are part of the unity, it's as though they develop ego. They identify themselves with division, the divided existence, and they limit their existence to that divided form. Then the question of delusion arises, the fact of delusion arises. Man is very often under this delusion. The multiple consciousness in man provides this handle for this kind of an ego, and so he is under avidya. This is how Sri Aurobindo Ghosh explains vidya and avidya. Brahman is unity, but at the same time, Brahman is not limited by unity. He is all powerful. He can operate from different centers, multiple centers, from many forms of energy. He can do that. But even while doing so, he is not under the bondage of multiplicity. He is not limited by multiplicity. He is the Lord of both Vidya and Avidya. In this stanza, when we speak, in this mantra, when we speak about Vidya and Avidya, this is the sense that Sri Aurobindo Ghosh ascribes to these two words. The consciousness of unity is Vidya, the fundamental fact. The consciousness of multiplicity, which can give rise to an ego by which that particular center develops an identity of its own, so much so that it feels that it is separated from the fundamental unity. That multiple consciousness is avidya. It is in this sense that Sri Aurobindo Ghosh makes us understand these two words, vidya and avidya. How an accord can be created between them, that we will see in the coming sessions. Hari Om, Pranamam to all blessed souls.